Hey, welcome to the Unintentionally Offensive podcast, where we try to keep it real without really pissing you off or do. That's what we do. So I'm Big C. Brothers AB and Big Los are the co-hosts. And here we go with the show. Here's our topic. This is an interesting topic, too. I like this. Why is there a lack of black ownership in our communities? Let's talk about it. AB, I'm going to let you start off.
Thank you, brother. This is one that we've been talking about via text, prepping up for this episode. And I just really have some real deep personal thoughts about this, but I feel like at the core, so I'm going to go macro, micro, so big picture, small picture. I believe from the big picture point of view, it is about systemic racism. And that's always been the case for us as African Americans in this country. And that's just keeping it real. You know, whether you're from the south side, west side, north side of Chicago, whether you're from any urban city or place, how many times have you really seen in our era, in our age group, true black ownerships where you live, where you were raised, going to this corner store that was black owned, gas station black owned, everything was black owned. You know, to us, we heard stories about the Black Wall Street in Tulsa. That's a myth to us because we've never seen that. You know, you and I have never been in a place that we were born and raised or that we lived in and everything was black owned. So I believe the system has been set against us from number one. And two, in the way that they set it up is you can have money, but they still won't give you, like, you know, how many times, and I just use this just as a reference, you know, how many black owned bars, because you can have the money to buy the building, but getting that liquor license is a whole nother thing. You know, that requires adversaries in the right places. And so my number one thing is definitely systemic racism, and also from the local level, I think that because of that, we don't even view ourselves as being owners of anything that, legal wise, in the bigger picture. Of course, there always are exceptions, but I just don't think that we see ourselves as owners. So that's my initial thought about it.
Big Los, you got anything to say on that subject?
Oh yeah, man, that was well put, AB, and I definitely agree with you. Another thing, funding. How many times have we gone into banks and get denied loans? How many of us don't support us? We'll spend money with all white corporate America, no pun intended, but we will before we go to our own. And part of that is on us. I can't even front. Part of that is on us. The banks, the community, and hell, the culture. We have to do better. When we try to establish ourselves and own our own banks and own our own media companies and own our own whatever, hey, let's just be real. It's much harder to go up that ladder than if we were another color. But it can be done. We've seen it. And I feel like we have to support each other.
Amen.
Yeah. I'm gonna dig into this too. I'm gonna go back to something AB said about the systemic part of it. And this is gonna be controversial, but when we were segregated from everyone, we had to come together and build our own businesses. That's how you had the Tulsas, the Bronzevilles, the Harlem Renaissance. We had to, because they would not let us get in those doors. So we have the wherewithal, the smarts. We have the money. We just don't have a collective money. Like other communities keep their money together. Like Big Los was saying about, we have to spend with each other. When's the last time any of us has been a weekend and it was all black owned? We haven't.
Never.
I'm going to the bar that's black owned. I'm going to a store on 87th Street. 87th Street is a major corridor in Chicago, South Side. 75th Street. We have to start patronizing these places. We talk but we have to start taking our kids to these places. When the last time I've been to the DeSalvo Museum? Years, but I'll go to the Museum of Science and Industry every year, and they both relatively close to where I live. So we have to that's a thing. I think we need to actually, as a collective, as a unintentionally offensive, put things out there for Black people to go to. We need to put out restaurants, clothing, churches, the whole gambit, financial institutions, so people know where to go. Sometimes people just don't know. So we
And let
can't
me
always just take as they're not doing it. Maybe they don't know. We have to put it out there.
and to your point, please put in the comments. We putting a call out. Any of our supporters, our viewers, Black-owned businesses, or just businesses of color, period. Not just African American businesses, but just any business of color, that are underrepresented. Please put in the comments your business so that we can give you guys a shout out. We would love to do business with you all, to just, market your business. And to your point, let me give a history lesson real quick. To your point, Big C, I don't want to get all off into, well, this is unintentionally offensive. So this is going to go viral and I'm cool with it. I am not a racist by no means. But the worst thing that happened to African American people in terms of education and ownership was segregation. It is 100%. You guys can read Dr. Carter G. Woodson's The Miseducation of the Black Man. Okay, that's one. You guys know I'm a professor, so I'm gonna give you. I've read all this. Let me give you a quick history lesson. They make it a stereotype that Black people Cadillacs. Well, let me give you the history lesson that, to my brother Big C's credit. The reason why that whole stigma of Black people Cadillacs started, because it's actually rooted in truth. The fact that during the Great Depression, because Blacks were not allowed to have their money in banks, when the Great Depression happened and all these banks folded, we saved GM. We saved them because we had cash. This is when you heard your great grandmother or your grandmothers, based on your age, they would say their money in a mason jar. James Brown famously said, he told Eddie Murphy how he buried his money in multiple mason jars in the yard. Now, I don't recommend that, but I'm just saying, but it was the fact that we had liquid currency, that we had liquid assets. So when everybody else could not get loans for cars, we paid for Cadillacs cash in hand. Mm-hmm. We single-handedly, as a race, saved GM and saved Cadillac in particular. So it's a badge of honor when you say Blacks, and they make it a negative thing, but if you know your history, then you understand how we, due to the fact that banks wouldn't work with us, how we saved these white corporations because we had cash. So I just had to say that.
Let me add one more thing. Black Wall Street was destroyed. And then another thing, it's crazy that it's like this. When we built this country, we built this country. We invented everything. Almost every major thing that we use to live and use as entertainment, we created. So why don't we benefit from that more?
Which goes back to systemic racism. Yeah. There is a system in place to hold a glass ceiling for us, because we are the number one, like our dollars, let's go back. It's been famously said, in certain communities, back, the northwest suburb of Chicago, Skokie, which is predominantly Jewish. They say $1, trade hands 9 times within Skokie before it gets out.
Before it leaves the community.
The black dollar in Bronzeville or anything is 1 time, maybe, and so go back to the respect. I want to just in my part by saying this. You will go to a store on any Martin Luther King Drive, and if you would see that sweater that you want, and it says $90. There are many people of color who would say, okay, all I got is 85. Would you let me do that? Let me get this. You would never go into Macy's and see that same sweater with $90. You wouldn't even dare try to go to the cash register with nothing less than $90 plus the tax. So there's a
Yeah.
respect factor that
Yeah.
has been that is missing when it comes to respecting our own in a business sense. We always looking for a hookup and a handout in
Yep.
certain senses, not everyone, but in certain senses, we always looking for a handout or a hookup. Hey, this shirt says $90. Respect the price tag, no matter what the location is. But
Yeah.
that takes deep programming to reprogram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me say this too, real quick, about the businesses. Our community is the only community that is not welcoming other people's communities to open businesses. Everybody else comes when people come from China, they come to the black area to open shops, nail shops, because we welcome them because we don't control our politics. We have black politicians, but we don't control our politics. Because if we want it to be the same way as other communities, no, you have to give us something in order to get in here. We don't have that power for it. We need to get the power. Politics is big too. We have to get our politics together, and people who are not doing what they're supposed to do, we have to get them out, because there's no reason there should be this many vacant buildings in our community, because 79th Street, and again, this is the South Side staple, it's the same buildings as the shops on the north side, same building structure, same everything, but economically we're not viable to build these things. And let's be honest, I live in a neighborhood that is quote unquote not one of the best neighborhoods. I'll just put it like that. So the dollar doesn't want to be here because it can't sustain a lot of these businesses. That's a thing too. When we made money, we left. Before segregation ended, my next door neighbor was a doctor. This person was a fireman. That person was a policeman. Now we don't have community like that anymore. So, I mean, that's my take on it. But never give up. We can still do anything we want to do.
But let me just say this. When you mention power, right? Ownership shows what? Power. That was never meant for us. So that's another key factor to it. And then one more thing before I end it. We as black people, do we really trust each other in business? Like, just be honest. Like, do we?
No.
Is that a question for me and him? Because I'm gonna
That's
say
the question for everyone. And
no.
Please put it in the comments. No.
Yeah.
I say no. This is which goes back to systemic racism. Everything happened, in my opinion, but my opinion is backed by a lot of resources, a lot of factual history. When we tried to integrate with this system, it took our history away. How many times, like Big Los, you mentioned all the things that we created, that African Americans are responsible for creating in this country. But did you get taught that in grade school?
Nope.
You found that out on your own. Am I right or wrong?
And the only time I would have found it out in grade school was Black History Month. We just get that 1 month, but it wasn't drilled into us. It wasn't something that we heard repetitively, So after that month, that was it.
Yeah.
And there's no disrespect, but Black History Month consisted of slavery, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Rosa Parks. Nothing economically. We never heard any person economically in that month.
Yeah.
Brainwashing.
And it's just that.
Yeah.
But it's just like you said, like you both have said, we have to change our mindset and stop this crab in a barrel mentality. That's the big thing, because it is sad to see. And my last time back home, I'm like, man, driving down Stony Island and Cottage Grove is depressing to see all those closed
Mm-hmm.
stores, to see the under financial investment, to just see it vividly. But then I can go on DuSable Drive, go to Clark, go to Fullerton, and it's thriving. Every mom and pop, you got a vinyl shop up there. You got all the clothing stores up the wazoo that are thriving. We don't see that on the south side or the west side in abundance like that, And so, and that's happened here as well. Here in NY, you can go to any big urban, we don't own, like, you don't just, like, very rarely, there are places like, and you guys please put in the comments, like, I know that that the ATL is is considered Wakanda for us, and that's a rare place, and you know what, big shout out to them. But most places that are urban areas, if you're black and you're red, like, you can't go to a corner store that was owned, that you knew Mr. Johnson has owned that store, his family owned that store for 30, 40 years. It don't exist. Those stores are owned by people that don't look like us, and they take the profit, and they don't live in those communities. So they take the profit and they move on. They go elsewhere with our money. So it just, that's the big issue. Like, this is a very serious topic that we need to be addressing more, especially in this age of technology and AI. There are more millionaires now, black millionaires, than there's ever been. So where is the money being invested or reinvested? We have to build a coalition, build a network. We have to come together like transformers. I got this skill, you got that skill, you got that skill. Let's come together and build a firm, build a think tank,
AB, just real quick off what you just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we seen our successful black men, and as soon as they try to do something like you just said, they get taken down? Scandals, false accusations, all type of stuff. So
that's the number one way, which goes back to systemic racism, like you said. And one, his biopic is coming out next month. Michael Jackson owned Sony, who owned all of he was one of the most powerful black men in music. And then they just wacko jackled him. Now he was a big, he's a child rapist and all this stuff. Yeah. That's what they do. Kanye West. Look at the money he had with the Adidas deal. I mean, multi-billion. And then they just, when you start speaking out too far, when you get too ahead of yourself, that's when the scandal comes. They make you crazy. Yep, they'll make you crazy. And so you have to know how to maneuver in this game. And I give shout out to Jay-Z, Sean Carter, because he has learned how to do this in a quiet way. You have to play the game to win the game. And so you can't be so radical and outspoken. Look at what he's done with the halftime of the biggest game in the country. Bad Bunny, that was intentional, okay? That was after all this ice and everything. Okay, so you want to do that? We're going to bring the biggest Latin star on your biggest stage. And white folks went crazy. Yeah. But he did that. The year prior to that, who? Kendrick. Prior to that, who? He's learned how to move within the system. You can't get so far left or right of the system as a black man, because they will do just like you said, Big Los. They're gonna find a way to tear you down. They'll bring you. Look at Diddy. I mean, just once he started speaking out against Trump and everything else, look at him now.
Or his money with his liquor.
Yep. And that was the real reason. That
was the reason it happened. Yeah.
Once he started that political movement too. Remember, he was trying to start a political movement.
People, please understand us when we say this about Diddy. This is the truth. None of this happened. None of this came out. until he spoke out against that alcohol manufacturer. That's when the videotape, no one is condoning what he's done. Some of the stuff that make me, and I've done some wild stuff. I don't know about some of the stuff that he's been, that was put in. They shamed him, put all his business out there in court, made it a public thing. That was to, even when he come out. And when have you heard of somebody spending that much time in prison for hiring a prostitute?
Right.
Like, this is what they do. This is what they
files.
do. Yeah, thank you. This is what they do. So, we just have to understand the game and know the rules of the game. And that's how we can win to the best of our ability, is by understanding the rules as it pertains to how they will let us maneuver within the system, period.